and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is March 16th, 2020. And tonight's topic, gold-silver ratio hits 125 to 1, and there is no silver shortage. We're going to talk about silver and gold. We're also going to talk about, yes, indeed, the coronavirus. I've got some views on that, and of course, this video will get slabbed with some type of foolish Wikipedia information sticker from YouTube about if you really want to learn about the coronavirus, you go there. Now, just a quick word on that. It's really foolish for YouTube to try to tell people what they should think about certain controversial topics. It really is a type of mind think, thought control. It's foolish because what really happens in any situation, markets or whatever, they're made up of all participants, including those that some might consider people who don't know what they're talking about. They do make up the population, so you have to consider those points of view. Not that I'm saying that what I'm going to say indicates I don't know what I'm talking about, but some people may think that my points of view are not acceptable, and that's fine, because I think a lot of what other people say are unacceptable, and that's what free speech is all about. All right, well, let's get now into the first topic, the gold-silver ratio. And it hit 125 to 1. And also we're going to get into why there's no silver shortage, because a lot of people are taking advantage of the low silver prices. They crashed again today down below $13. And gold really didn't take that much of it. Silver was down about 12.5%, but gold was down just about 1 or 2%. And people are taking advantage or trying to take advantage of the low prices. But the problem is that there is a shortage of silver coins and bars and rounds in investable form. And the reason for that is silver sales have been down for the last few years, and the U.S. Mint has not really been ramping up production, nor have other silver producers. And indeed, the coronavirus is now actually taking its toll on refiners of gold. I saw that in Switzerland. So what you have now is akin to a hamburger patty shortage, not a beef shortage. And it's the same thing with investable silver. Now, you're going to hear in the coming days that this indicates that the paper price and the physical price are decoupling, and COMEX is a fraud, and on and on and on, and all that stuff you've been hearing for years. Game over, game changer, COMEX default, CRIMEX, and so on. All nonsense, because that price reflects silver's price based on its value as a commodity. That is 70-75% of silver demand. Now, yes, there is a bit of an uptick in investment demand the last few days. We've seen in the bullion dealers have record orders. And obviously, if the price of silver has gone down to this level, makes sense. A lot of people think it's a good buy. I don't necessarily disagree that if you can buy silver for $13 an ounce, that's a good thing. However, you can't buy it for $13 an ounce because the silver dealers don't have any on hand at $13 an ounce. So they're doing what everybody else is doing who happens to have hand sanitizer. They're ratcheting up the price. They're charging $20, $22, $23, $24 an ounce for silver eagles and $18, $19 for other silver rounds and bars an ounce that they may have. And pretty much they've all sold out of those. So that leads the silver fanatics to start talking about physical silver shortage, of which there is not one at the moment. The only way a silver physical shortage can occur, it's not going to happen in 3 days because the bullion dealers are wiped out of available inventory. It's just that there's not enough physical silver in that form that people can buy. Now, let's take a look at the gold-silver ratio. Now, this has been something long-term listeners of the Smaulgld program know that I have mocked for years. Those are saying the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable, out of whack. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I was on ST Bullion. I was explaining why I thought the gold-silver ratio was rational at 75, 80 to 1 and why it could go higher. Simply because silver has not really increased in demand on its commodity level, in that the amount of silver required for electronics and solar panels has basically been flat since 2010 in the aggregate, and actually down for electronics. And that silver's investment demand is only 10-15% of silver's overall demand, and that demand has not really been that great the last few years, the last 5 or 10 years. Gold, on the other hand, is priced more as a monetary metal. Central banks hold it. It's considered a tier 1 asset. a lot of gold jewelry that's purchased is considered investment gold. Now, that profile means that in a crisis, that gold gets an investment bid. It means that people rush into gold as a safe haven. And really, gold is the only safe haven other than the US dollar, and a lot of gold and silver bugs insist gold is toilet paper. Well, toilet paper is worth a lot, isn't it now? But gold is the real safe haven. Silver is not, irrespective of silver has been money for 5,000 years, and you can put silver in yoga pants. It's all largely irrelevant. The point is that silver is not a safe haven. Silver is an industrial metal with a dormant monetary component. And let's just take a look at that gold-silver ratio. Unsustainable, there it is. Drove all the way up to 124. And that's because there is a financial crisis right now, or at least there's some type of financial panic. And gold held up. And remember, if there is we're going to get into this when we discuss the coronavirus in a few minutes. If there is a slowdown, and there will be in economic activity, well, the demand for silver, platinum, palladium, and other commodities, nickel, copper, and so on, are going to go down. Oil and so on. Gold is not dependent upon, its demand is not dependent upon people making stuff. It's dependent on people worrying about stuff and wanting to preserve their wealth. And so people buy gold, they don't buy silver. And you see today, the gold-silver ratio ratchet up to 125 to 1. And remember, my thesis has been that while silver is not money, it is not currently money, it has a dormant monetary component. There is some semblance of its historical value as a store of value, but it's really not recognized, at least hasn't been since 1974, until gold gets into a bull market. Now, the reason the gold-silver ratio spiked in the last few days isn't because gold was skyrocketing and silver wasn't. It was because silver was plummeting and gold wasn't falling. That's not a good thing for silver. My thesis on when the gold-silver ratio falls or will fall is when gold goes into a bull market, continues to rise, and then silver's dormant monetary component gets ignited. And since it's such a small market and it's a small part of the market, even if there's a decline in the commodity demand for silver, that silver indeed will rise and will rise faster than gold, and then that gold-silver ratio will narrow. Well, that's not what's happening now. As long as gold is falling, silver's going to fall more. And if gold starts to rise, then silver may start to turn around. But anyway, this was all predicted. I'm not taking a victory lap because I've been saying it for years, and it has been happening, and I'll show you. I mean, I could have taken a victory lap every month because there's your gold-silver ratio climbing pretty much constantly, despite Bick Swear saying, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and he doesn't understand that silver's the Achilles heel of the banksters, whatever the heck he's talking about. Or what's the other guy who's always talking about digital illusions of wealth, and silver is the way to go. Anyway, silver, yeah, it's a good price right now, but you just look at that and you say to yourself, there's 10 years of lost opportunity, even just compared to gold. Now it's even more of a lost opportunity compared to other assets. I'm not here to bash silver. I'm just here to point out the reality, because silver is something that I follow, and you can be an analyst and not fall in love with an asset. You can be an analyst and try to view it objectively. I know it's hard, but people love to binge watch these silver pumper videos explaining to them why it's unsustainable, or there's some reason, some nefarious reason why silver is not rising, and really it's quite easily explainable. But if you watch these videos constantly, day in and day out, telling you why silver is set to skyrocket, there's nothing that I can say that's going to convince you otherwise, even losing 60-70% of your money. But then they say, I haven't lost anything. I still have my ounces. Okay. Good for you. All right, so that's the gold-silver ratio. That's done. And that, of course, what's going to happen is you're going to hear all these stories about silver shortage, and it's going to be based on the fact that you can't get silver at your local coin dealer, and you can't get it at the local coin, at the online bullion dealers. It doesn't mean there's a silver shortage. It means there's a shortage of silver in investable form. Now, the question is, that would be a problem if you needed it. But you don't. What are you going to do with it? Protect yourself. Protect yourself from what? The coronavirus? I don't understand why it would be a necessity to get silver at this point. especially at the premium. It wouldn't make any sense to try to buy it at $23, $24 when the price on the open market is $13. Now, remember with gold has a limited upshot on price because while people may pour into gold as a safe haven during a financial crisis, it does cut back on jewelry demand, which is about half of its demand. As the prices rise on jewelry, remember they're canceling weddings, there's going to be less need for jewelry. So gold will have somewhat of a cap on the price, at least on its jewelry demand side, but that could be overwhelmed by its investment demand. All right, let's move on now to this whole coronavirus and the kind of madness that's occurred around it. I'm going to give you first my view on what should be happening and what's not happening. And again, that's just my point of view. I'm not a virologist. I haven't studied impacts of viruses on economies or populations. I'm just going to give you my observations. And then I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. And again, it's just a prediction. It's not investment advice. It's not medical advice. It's just a guy with 3,900 followers giving you my point of view. And if you appreciate it, it's fine. If not, you can go watch a Silver Pumper channel telling you it's the end of the world. And the only way you can protect yourself is by buying silver rounds with anti-government slogans on them. Okay, so the response to this coronavirus has been unprecedented. And a lot of people think, well, that's what you need. That's a good thing. Because if you don't do that, then people don't take it seriously. And there has been an upshot. There are some good things that have come out of it. But I think actually the way they're going about this, closing everything, is probably the worst thing they could possibly do. Because what they're doing is they're closing everything. And you're seeing in this now, you close down Italy nationwide. You close down parts of Los Angeles. They're shutting down the schools in New York City. Many areas are undergoing these lockdowns. Now, the problem with a lockdown is, according to what I've seen, and again, I'm only going by publicly available information, the virus impacts and affects people that are older. And that the death rates of people much younger are very, very low. Now, you say, well, still, let's just try to nip this in the bud. We want social distancing. We want to make sure people don't get sick because the more vulnerable elements or individuals in the population are going to be susceptible to that. Okay, so the idea is let's shut everything down. But the problem with that is they say let's shut everything down, but that which keeps us comfortable. And so many of the shutdowns involve keeping open grocery stores and supermarkets. Now, that makes sense. People need to eat, and maybe they need to take their drugs. But people eat and take drugs based on the fact that they have worked and are able to do that. Now, if you cannot pay to eat and pay to take your drugs, well, how do you expect to pay for them? Well, everybody just stays home. The government sends us $1,000, and when we feel like going out to the grocery store for some avocado toast or running over to the pharmacy, that'll be open. That's not a problem. Well, that's kind of stupidity, because if the idea is you don't want to meet in public places, if the only places that are open are grocery stores and pharmacies, they're going to be mobbed. And what's going to happen? You're going to get the virus at a grocery store or a pharmacy. But the idea is that people need to eat and people need to take drugs, so they herd everybody into those two places, and somehow that is going to stop the spread of the virus. Now, there's another theory, and again, I'm not subscribing to it. I don't know whether this makes sense, but there's the herd immunity theory, that if you don't let people get the virus, then large groups, then the virus will continue to persist because it won't run its course. Now, the danger to that is you say, well, the older people, they're very susceptible. That's very irresponsible. Well, no, under my plan, which again, I have no power to implement and no influence in having it done, would be to quarantine nursing homes and self-quarantine older people and make special arrangements for them to visit grocery stores, visit pharmacies when no one is there, say early morning, evening, or have deliveries to them, and have those people ring-fenced from the population, or those with pre-existing medical conditions that make them susceptible, and let the rest of the world get on with it. And because it's going to be a lot worse if people can't work, are home, they can't work because the schools are closed, so they have to stay home with their children. Now, here's the upshot of all this, though. This is what they're doing. So they're going to they're not going to take my plan and only isolate those that are vulnerable, or only isolate those with pre-existing medical condition or the elderly. They're going to close everything. But this is going to create, I think, a tectonic shift in how we view the world. And I'll give you a quick example. I have a few of them. The first is open borders. Open borders used to be racist, used to be the worst thing you could, not having open borders was racist. It was the worst thing you can do. You need to let everybody just go wherever they want. Now, surprisingly, Justin Trudeau's wife has the coronavirus, and he announced that Canada's closing its border to non-citizens because of the coronavirus pandemic. Lots of countries are going to be closing their borders. Now, that's a little odd because that is a 180-degree shift into or from the idea that we needed open borders. That is something I think is going to last, because if they've created this hysteria over, whether it's justified or not, that's not the point, there is hysteria over the coronavirus. Well, open borders now appear to be out. Well, there's a few other things that are happening. Schools. Remember, it was everybody has to go to school so they have a university and get a free education so they can join the middle class. Well, maybe you don't have to go to university if there's a coronavirus, and maybe you can just stay home, and maybe you can just take those courses online. Well, maybe, just maybe, you don't even need to take those courses at all, but let's say you do need to take those courses. Well, you can take them online. Well, if you can take them online, why would it cost tens of thousands of dollars to send people to school? And why would it cost that much? And why would you have to take out loans to do it? If you can just go online, then it becomes no different than, dare I say it, YouTube University, where you can sit and learn and listen to how the earth is flat and all the other things you can learn. But at least you can have a university stamp behind it, and you can watch videos on whatever topic you wish. And it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg and to take out a lot of debt in order to do it. Well, here's just something I wrote here. Wouldn't it be better to quarantine nursing homes, care units, and help elderly and those with medical conditions to get groceries at home and medicine, allow the rest of the world to function? I just don't think that it's the right thing to do to shut everyone down. Remember, people of all stripes, all backgrounds, all types of workers will not be able to work. If you're a musician, you can't do your gigs. If you want entertainment, you can't go out and get it. If you are a worker in a restaurant, well, then you're not going to be working wherever you work, other than a pharmacy or a grocery store. Now, that's a mixed blessing. Do you want to be a grocery store worker or a pharmacy worker and get, quote, to work, and also be most exposed to those people coming out to buy the drugs and the groceries? Or do you want to be one of the people who doesn't get to work and gets to stay home with your kids and get paid $1,000 from the government? That doesn't make any sense one way or the other. It's a Hobson's choice. And I would believe that it'd be better to allow the rest of the economy to function. Yes, close down the travel. And the other good thing is convincing people of hygiene. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's an upshot we're going to have. We're going to have a positive upshot. We're going to have the idea that maybe college education, university education doesn't have to be done at a particular place at a particular time. Universities, I think that's going to be an area where we're going to reconsider that one. Maybe it's going to be a permanent option when the virus is gone. That'll lower educational costs. Also, there's other upshots or positive things that could happen from this. People washing their hands more often. That's a good thing, because if people are more concerned about hygiene, you'll probably have the lesser spread of other viruses and other just pathogen-borne illnesses that people get just from being filthy. Also, supply chains. Now, this is a very big one, and it kind of ties into, supply chains tie into globalism and open borders. One of the things that I saw the other day was that, well, first of all, if you're a company that is reliant on China for non-essential goods, you're just getting your widgets done there. Well, now you realize that if you cannot get your widgets or produce because they're in China, well, you have a massive risk factor in your business because you can't get your stuff. And maybe you start thinking at least as a backup. Instead of saying, well, once China opens up, we'll be fine again. Well, what about when it's not open? Maybe having a permanent, temporary backup, or maybe even just thinking, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk to have this happen again. So we're going to start producing things in the United States or some other country, or diversifying our supply from around the world or around the country. I think that's going to happen. And we're seeing that is something that I think there's going to be an executive order on this where they're concerned that the medical, I don't know if people know this, but a lot of the U.S. drugs are purchased from China. They make the pharmaceutical drugs, they make antibiotics, they make a lot of things, and that's a national security risk. And there's really no reason for that. Yes, it's cheaper and so on to do it, but I think there's going to be an executive order on that, changing that. So we're going to see some of the, it's interesting, the coronavirus will do more to change the agenda than actual overt political acts like America First, or trying to be anti-globalist, or trying to close borders. These things just happen as a matter of course based on the virus. It's a natural reaction. And it's interesting to hear someone like Justin Trudeau, who had been a huge supporter of open borders, has to go on TV and say we're closing the border. Why? It's home. His wife has the coronavirus. Now, his wife may not necessarily have got it from someone who traveled across borders, but actually, if you think about it, she did, because it came from China. And somehow people found its way from China into Canada. Now, that doesn't mean that you cut down all travel, but that's actually what they're doing. You cannot get in and out of Canada now unless you are a citizen. Here's an interesting thing. You can look it up online. I thought was normally Hollywood type propaganda pieces I don't like, but I actually think this one is good. I don't know if it's Hollywood propaganda, but Mel Brooks, if you remember, he's like a 93-year-old guy. He's a comedian. He did Blazing Saddles. His son is here, and he gives a message, and he basically, he's got his father quarantined behind the glass there, and he says, be sensible, be reasonable, and keep your elderly parents safe from the virus. And I think that's a very good way of looking at it. And meanwhile, he should be able to go out and earn, I don't know if he earns a living, but he should be able to go out and do his job, whatever that job may be, as I think other people should be. So this is not, this to me, I think it's not a good idea to isolate the whole world. I think it's a good idea to isolate those that are more prone to the illness. And because it doesn't do anyone any good to self-isolate everybody if everyone's going to be impoverished, and then you're going to have real issues with people not being able to earn a living, not being able to pay their debts, and then having a real crisis, which perhaps that's the purpose of all this. I don't know, because remember back in, I think it was 2009, we had the, quote, unstoppable swine flu pandemic. And many of you are old enough to remember it. It's only about 10, 11 years old. And during that time, they didn't shut down anything. Remember, we've canceled the NHL, the NBA, basically any gathering, St. Patrick's Day parades, Boston Marathon, and so on. Back then, they didn't do any of this. Now, a lot of that had to do with that they were preparing for Obamacare, perhaps. But the idea is, and I'm not sure that this virus is any better or any worse than the swine flu. Maybe it is, but we did not see this type of coordinated reaction. Now, you could say, maybe it's a good thing there's this coordinated reaction. But what I don't see is, I haven't seen any coordinated economic reaction, because, frankly, cutting interest rates or giving people $1,000 one-time payment isn't going to change the course of the virus, isn't going to create economic activity. Oh, great, I can get access to a zero interest rate loan. I'm going to start a business. Start a business doing what? You can't hire people. You can't do anything. So I'm not quite sure. This is unlike the financial crisis of 2008, which was solely the creation of the financial system. So if the financial system created it by creating too much debt, well, the obvious way they could, quote, fix it is just by printing a lot of money and lowering interest rates and papering the whole thing over. You can paper over a virus. I mean, that's should be self-evident, but it doesn't seem to be. And people seem to be very content with trying to urge their political leaders to shut everything down, send them home. I mean, who wouldn't want a vacation as long as you can get your drugs and your food? And I'm not sure that that's the solution. And some people I know don't want to just be sent home. They want to go to work. But it's also going to highlight a lot of people that have work that can be sent home. Means maybe when the virus runs its course, they didn't need to have those workers in the first place if they can be at home. Or maybe they can use them at home just for a few hours a day. I think this is really going to change how people view university and work, whether universities are necessary to the extent the amount of education supposedly that's dispensed and the manner in which it's dispensed and at the cost at which it's dispensed. I think that'll be under investigation. Homeschooling in general, people might find out their kids are no worse off if they spend some time at home with their parents learning something. And also the job situation, that a lot of people get paid high-priced jobs, and maybe a lot of the jobs they do don't need to be done. Now, we are going to find out that maybe people who work at grocery stores and pharmacies actually do something that people need done. Same with truck drivers and so on. All right, I think that's about it. I want to get to your comments on what's going on. Let me just see if I had anything else here. Yeah, the supply chain thing I think is very important. And it ties into the America First. Oh, and the other thing we have to talk about quickly is the impact on the presidential election. Now, a lot of Trump haters think this is going to bring him down because they're going to say he hasn't handled the crisis. There's a problem with that theory that if the virus runs its course in the next few months, which it's possible it could, maybe it doesn't, but if it does, then he'll have been seen to have taken care of it because they have created this as the biggest crisis ever. And if in the next few months it's not, then he's going to be a big hero, unwittingly from their perspective, because they're trying to make it out to be calling it like it's his fault. It's the Trump virus. He didn't take it seriously. He called it a hoax. When he actually called the Democrats' reaction to it a hoax. But poor choice of words there. But the other thing is he did shut the Chinese travel into the United States down at the time. They said that's racist. He shouldn't be shutting the borders down. Of course, whatever he does, no one's going to, if you're against Trump, you're going to say whatever he did was wrong. If you're for Trump, anything he did was right. But the proof is going to be in the pudding is whether we actually have serious loss of human life and or loss of economic activity. I mean, I think the idea here is to create a recession, to create a situation where we have the Dow goes down, everything goes down, and the whole raison d'etre of Trump's presidency that somehow he drives the stock market higher. If that's gone, then and we have a recession, you say, well, we might as well hire. That's a good thing. We might as well hire Bernie or Biden to run the ship. Not sure that that's going to happen. Let's see what you guys think here in the comments section. All right. In the meantime, I was going to say, if you'd like, you can order, but you can't because there's probably nothing left at the bullion dealers. That is one way that Smaulgld makes a little side change is through your purchases of precious metals through the site. So I think your only option now to help Smaulgld out would be to actually donate directly. I'll put up that link here. Now, I didn't talk about Bitcoin, Litecoin, and other cryptocurrencies. And as I've said all along, I've never viewed those as safe havens. I've always viewed those as speculative assets. I never said Bitcoin was digital gold. I don't think that it is. I don't think it's been around long enough. I do think that they have speculative value, but I definitely don't think that they're a store of value. And, of course, a lot of Bitcoiners get annoyed when you say that. And once you get that single asset adoration in your head, it's very hard, I suppose, to get rid of it. And as you know, I don't have that. Even though, some people say because I talk about Bitcoin and Litecoin, they think that I've fallen in love with them too. I have not. I am not in love with any particular asset. I don't think it's a good idea. And people say I'm fall in love with the dollar. I'm not. I just point out that the dollar has held up, and I've given the reason why the dollar has held up. And I think it will continue to hold up. And when they say things are unsustainable, nothing is sustainable. I know that. Anything organic is destined to die, but that doesn't mean because you watch a YouTube video, it's going to go the way of the dinosaur next week. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the comment section. All right. We got all as one. Let's see. Do we have? Let's get the live chat. Nick Rodriguez says, "Oh, you're gonna piss off some people with this video." Yeah, well, that gold silver. Yeah, someone was trying to tell me I shouldn't be commenting so much on the gold silver ratio, and I don't know, because it seems like I'm taking a victory lap, and I'm thinking, why? The people that are touting the gold silver ratio as unsustainable, they keep talking about it, and they outnumber me by a factor of 100 to 1, and they have far more viewers. Most of the silver people who watch or follow silver think that have thought the gold silver ratio is unsustainable, and I'm just going to keep making my point. No one's listening, so I don't really care. You got 45 people watching tonight. That's fine, but you look at the Mike Baloney videos, tens of thousands of people. Thanks, Mike, for keeping us informed. Informed about what? I don't understand. You haven't been informed. Greatest wealth transfer to happen between 2010 and 2020 for silver holders. Buy a single family home with 300 ounces of silver. No, that's all right. If you think that's good information and thanks for what you do and all that, have at it. Remember, he was a gold back yuan. This is a game changer. That's good information. Hidden secrets of money. Andrew Del Quadro. I've been waiting for small gold stake. Well, there you had it. All right, Chuck and Plato. Luis coming in loud and clear from Puerto Plato. All right, Bob the Monk. Yesterday, Silver Gold Bull mentioned plus 10 days delivery. Yeah, okay. So it's going to take a while, and you're going to pay the premium. And in 10 days, you're going to have overpriced gold or silver. I don't understand why you would do that. We talked about this in advance. I said this would happen. You should never buy Silver Eagles at a massive premium because you're not going to make the money back right away. But, of course, the pumpers are trying to tell you that the COMEX is going to default and then the physical price is going to take over the paper price. It's not, because the amount of physical that's being purchased is de minimis compared to the overall silver demand and the silver contract trading. It's not going to overwhelm it, at least not over a weekend of record sales. Remember, the U.S. Mint stopped selling Silver Eagles. They ran out of planchets. That's what happened. They don't have any more to make Silver Eagles. So they sold a couple of million. But back in 2015, they were selling 4, 5, 6 million a month. They were a little more ratcheted up back then. Now today they're less capable of producing silver. So is the world, because a lot of silver dealers, mints, refiners went out of business. So there's going to be a shortage of the type of silver you can hold in your hand. But frankly, in the grand scheme of things, it's not like toilet paper. It's not like other items where 80-90% of the population want it. You're talking about your hardcore silver fanatics are like, oh my goodness, I've loved silver for 10 years. That hasn't been this price in 10 years. I'm loading up the truck. Okay, and there isn't any for you to load up on. You're not talking, 10 million ounces of silver isn't worth that much in the overall scheme of things. All right, what else do we have here? Nick Rodriguez, First Majestic is going up. Maybe some people are expecting a turnaround soon. Yeah, well, first of all, First Majestic isn't going to be mining more silver at $13 an ounce. That hurts them. I don't know why that's a good thing for them. The fact that they're selling Silver Eagles doesn't help them at all. I will say silver premium's holding strong. That's not a good thing. That's not a silver premium. You know what that is? That's a fabrication charge and a lack of silver. First of all, toilet paper is expensive. Why? Is paper in short supply? No. It's in short supply in the form of toilet paper that's available for you to buy in a grocery store. As soon as people stop buying it, the price is going to go. But first of all, the price of toilet paper hasn't gone up. It's only gone up for people who've hoarded it and tried to resell it. Okay, yeah, Nick Rodriguez. It's crazy. And what about people with children? How the hell are you going to take care of kids for a month? Yeah, I don't understand how. That's right. $1,000 isn't going to hook them up. You get two parents working, and they're both making, let's say, together more than $1,000 a month, I would imagine. Well, giving them $1,000 once, unless this is only going to be a 1-month quarantine, I'm not sure how this is a net benefit. It's certainly not a net benefit to the economy. They're claiming that it's going to be a net benefit to all of us overall because it'll reduce the level of infection. Now, if the flip side to that is you don't get the herd immunity, I'm not sure that's true. And I'm not sure the trade-off, if most people, I mean, not most, but statistically a very small percentage of people are actually going to get sick in the healthier classes, if you can successfully quarantine the more vulnerable elements of the population, then I'm not sure why shutting down everything makes a lot of sense. Now, it does make sense not to force people to shut down, but to warn people that, look, limit your activities. Certain things you don't need to do, don't do them. But to actually force them to, or tell them they can't go anywhere but a grocery store or a pharmacy, means they're going to aggregate in those places. All right, what else? If N825 masks are readily available to the public, it would be helpful. That could be. J.B. Wentworth. Perhaps we are in a moment of a titanic shift in how we all live and conduct business. Yes, I don't know if when you made that comment, that is a point I made during the course of the video so far. A momentous shove in the future digitalized economy that is percolating under the current era. Yes, Fiona says, hi team. And Spoko says, my local coin shop sold out of silver. Yes, but again, don't take that as there's a shortage of silver. There's a shortage of silver coins in investable forms for you to get your hands on. De La Ville, Port of Long Beach has been reported as empty. There will be empty shells, making a strong case for the nationalist point of view. That is correct. If you close down borders and you do this, you see, advocating for it to be done, you get opposition. No, you can't do that. It's racist. It's anti-free market, whatever the rationale are against open borders. But when you have a pandemic, everyone says close the borders. And then you have supply shortages, which means, how do you fix them? Well, then you got to get this stuff somehow domestically. All right. Mintmark SI. It's troubling in many ways. I am the culinary director of a senior community. I can kill people that I know, and I'm responsible, i.e. for their health and well-being. We're in lockdown. Yeah. Now, this particular comment was not shown, but the reason it's shown now is because you used the word kill. And it's correct. You know, if you look at it that way. And this is the point. The senior communities should really be the ones on a serious lockdown, I think. Not the entire population. And anyone else who's in a care facility for something other than being old, but just in a care facility because they have pre-existing conditions that make them more vulnerable. Perhaps AIDS patients, whoever. Those are the people that would be far easier to identify and protect. Now, you could say, well, if everybody's running around with the virus, you can't really protect them. No, I'm not sure of that. And again, I preface the whole thing with, I don't know anything about this. It just seems what they're doing, just saying, might not be the best course of action. And you say, well, they're the experts. Well, I'll just give you a quick example of an expert. The New York Times, one of the New York Times editorial board members was on TV with Brian Williams. I'm sure you all saw this, talking about some random tweet that someone made saying that Michael Bloomberg spent $500 million in his quest to try to gain the Democrat nomination. And with that kind of money, there's 300 million people in the United States. He could have given everybody in the United States $1 million. And this woman from the New York Times editorial board saying, yeah, it's true. And it's really bad because, well, okay, first of all, it's not true. But it's about $1.50 each. But the point being is, here's an expert. She's a New York Times editorial board member. You would think she called it a trivial math error. No, it's not a trivial math error. If you made that kind of trivial math error when talking about the coronavirus and the rate of infection or the mortality rate, it'd be a big problem. So this is why I feel comfortable criticizing what people are calling the experts, because what people call experts, I don't generally think are experts in many instances. Certainly used to be, in my mind, if you're on the editorial board of the New York Times, you weren't necessarily an expert. You were an expert in reporting the news, and simple fact-checking would have been one of those things. So I am suspicious and skeptical of people that are supposed experts when maybe they're not. Chuck and Plot, Lewis, you mentioned cryptos. Do they have third-party risk? Yeah, they do more. This is one of the points I always made about crypto versus gold. Once gold is pulled out of the ground and minted into a coin, or silver is minted into a bracelet or whatever you use it for, Your third-party risk is gone, other than having a counterfeit item. Bitcoin relies on a network, relies on electricity, it relies on a satellite, whatever the mechanism it is to transmit it. You don't own the Bitcoin. You have access to your Bitcoin on a network, and the network obviously involves third parties. Networks are run by people. Miners are run by people. It doesn't just exist. It's not like if the network shut down, you still have your Bitcoin. Well, you do, but you can't do anything with it. Whereas if everything shut down, you still have your silver, you still have your gold. So there is a third-party risk. All right. J.B. Wentworth. According to virologist research doctor Chris M. at Peak Prosperity, the difference now is the intensity of the contagion. You may not feel it while passing the virus to everyone you meet. Okay. That's fine. And that in and of itself is a data point that you can do many things with. And I'm not going to go through all the permutations of it, but the point is that doesn't mean anything. That just means what it means, and then you can make whatever assumptions you can from that. And you can use that fact, if it is a fact, to support whatever course of action you're trying to promote. KRL Rider, I miss your regular live streams. Hope you do more. No, I want to do more. I sent out a note to my patrons and Subscribestar members that I'm going to be doing more. It's just that I had a few things I had to take care of in the last. It's just that if you don't get into a schedule and you have other things to do, then it's hard to keep up. But I'm going to try to get back to a more regular schedule. Doug Gersh Patel. Lewis, I referred a colleague of mine to your content. He thought you were an Indian due to your view on gold. I must admit it is unbiased till he watched your videos. Oh, he thought I was a video until he watched he thought I was an Indian until he watched my videos. All right. Do I not sound Indian? I can do an Indian accent, but I understand if you do an Indian, you could get in trouble. Just like if you do a Chinese accent, they consider that problematic. I can imitate Mario Draghi without a problem and Bernie Sanders, but I think there's certain groups you can't, so I'm not going to give you my Indian accent. All right. Rob Gibbs is here. There goes Yoga Pants. Prendi domani. We need Mario Draghi back. From the Prendi domani. When all this started, I sold a few hundred ounces of silver when I was 18. Glad I did, said De La Ville. At $12 per ounce, only $7.99 over spot. Yeah, that's what it says on AppMex. Carrot Ryder says. I saw that. It's like, okay, so the price of silver drops, and effectively the price of Silver Eagles actually rose from what it was a couple of days ago. That doesn't make any sense. JB Wentworth says models created from China and South Korea predict the peak here in May. Okay, if that's the case, by election time, this thing is in the rearview mirror, and remember, you're going to have pent-up economic activity like you wouldn't believe, and then you're just going to get a mini boomlet. So no one knows the future. It's interesting to hear people think that they know, just like we heard people thought that they know where the gold-silver ratio was headed, where the price of gold was headed, the price of Bitcoin was headed, who was going to win the election. No one knows. I clearly admit that I don't know. I don't pretend to project. Actually, what I started doing, the gold-silver ratio, was really not a prediction. It was more based on a rationale why it was so high. And then once I made that rationale on the basis of why I thought the gold-silver ratio was high, I thought, why couldn't it go anything higher? All right. Durgish Basel, no, not the accent. Indians have an affinity for gold, and your views on bias prefer gold to other alternative investments. Well, that's based on objectivity, not based on being an Indian. That gold is a better form of investment than silver. That's not an opinion. That's just a fact. You could try to make silver out to be better. It's not. Currently, it's not. It hasn't been. All right. Durga says, apologies for goof off. Wish everybody a trouble-free. There's no problem there at all. No, there's no issue whether I'm an Indian or not an Indian, or for gold or not for gold. The point is that your friend actually listened and he thought I was an unbiased analyst, which is that's a good thing. All right, so wait a minute, hold on, I missed a comment here from Max. Max CC, hi. I think Mike Baloney's point is not that silver is in short supply, but that when gold gets too expensive in an inflation environment, the masses will move to silver as a store of value. That's similar to my point of view, but his is much more extreme. My point of view has been that when gold gets too expensive, people look for an alternative, and that alternative could be silver because it does have a dormant monetary component, monetary or investment component, But as we've seen since 1974, the two times that happened, gold was in a severe bull market, and it spiked and it dived. 1979, 1980, went to 50 and then crashed. 2010, 2011, went to 50 and then crashed. All right. It's all fake. Oh, I do want to say something about fake, and I'll leave you with this. Yeah. The problem with this idea that everything in the market is fake is, to me, a problem, because when things are fake, or if you know something is fake, or if you want to prove a point, you say, drivers, they don't know how to drive and they'll hit you and if you stand in the middle of the road. If you know they're going to do that, why would you stand in the middle of the road to prove it? It doesn't make any sense. So what a lot of people do is they have this whole everything is fake, and that somehow things aren't going to be fake. And if there's no wisdom, there's no wisdom in declaring everything is fake. The wisdom is in knowing it's fake, but knowing how much of it is fake. So, for example, if you think there's manipulation, and you know there's manipulation, then don't stand in front of the manipulation train and get rolled over and say, see, I told you there's manipulation. It's all part of the market. The fake part is part of the market too. The Fed reaction is part of the market. You can say, well, it's not a free market. When the free market takes over, well, you should know that maybe the free market doesn't take over. Or that you should be able to judge what the impact of the fakeness or whatever it is, the intervention is on the market. Not knowing that is a form of blockheadedness, and just trying to analyze the market as if there was nothing, quote, fake in it. Wanting things to be a certain way, or insisting they should be a certain way, or they would be a certain way if this didn't happen, is negating reality. The fakeness, the intervention, the Fed, the money, it's all part of the market. But it's fake. Okay. So analyze it as if it didn't exist. Idiotic. All right, Bernie, you're not getting paid, but I understand that you're going to do us a favor and give us the countdown because you think you're going to be president.
No, it's not that I think I'm going to be president. I know that I'm going to beat Jumpin' Joe Biden in the primaries, and they're going to try to steal the election from me, but I'm going to win. So I'm going to give you a very good countdown tonight, even though all of your people do not understand the concept of universal basic income, do not understand why it's important to have free.
Bernie, just do the countdown.
Oh, okay. So, unless I get any additional or Smaulgld gets more questions, I'm going to count to 10, and at the end of that, then I'm going to say goodnight. Is that how I'm supposed to do this?
Yes, Bernie. Without the editorialize. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Anyone got any questions? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1%, 0. Have a good night, everybody, and vote for me.
Good night, Bernie. Good night, everyone.